nice the time to Dr. Miriam Barbani from Barcelona. Thank you, Miriam.
Well, thank you for your kind invitation. This talk will be on neurotrophic keratopathy and neuropathic pain. So first of all, let's remind that corneal nerves and the neurosensory loop driven by the trigeminal pathway play a major role in modulating the blink response, stimulating the production of tears, and also maintaining the neurotrophic balance of the ocular surface through reepithelialization. And this is all controlled by innervation, but also by endocrine, vascular, and immune system. So this is the ocular surface system. But when we have a mechanical or an inflammatory damage that is consistent on time, then we will alter the corneal nerve structure, and eventually this will lead to nerve degeneration. So the first nodules will cause a neurogenic inflammation, and there will be a reaction of the body that will be good because it will promote the reepithelialization. But if it keeps going, then we will have a neuropathic pain or a neurotrophic keratopathy. The neurotrophic keratopathy is in fact the degeneration of the corneal nerves that will provoke an unhealing corneal epithelial defect and eventually an ulcer. This will be mainly caused by infections such as herpes, but also it can be caused by chemical burns, extensive use of contact lenses, corneal surgeries, or neurosurgical injuries. And these kind of patients will be the ones that will come to our office with lots of stain on the surface but without pain. And this is because the corneal degeneration will cause a decreased vitality of the epithelial cells, and we will see at stage 1 a cloudy and irregular corneal epithelium that will lead to epithelial defects, and in more progressed cases to deep corneal ulcers with a stromal melting. So we will classify our patients on the MACIS classification. It is very important, first of all, to do a proper clinical history. Here we will focus on previous ocular diseases such as herpes, ocular surgeries, and the things that we've been talking about. And also we will take into account the systemic diseases such as diabetes or multiple sclerosis. Also, we will ask about neurologic conditions such as brain tumors, neurosurgery, and so on. Another thing, it will be important to make a thoughtful ocular examination. So we'll start from out to inside the eye. We will look to the eyelids, especially rule out lagophthalmos at night, and also blinking alterations. It will be important also to check the fundus of the eye, to check if there's scarring, allergies, or some other issues. As for the ocular surface, we'll check if we have lesions on the cornea that let us think about dystrophies or previous infections, and it is very useful to put a drop of fluorescein and green lissamine tinctions to check the state of the surface. Of course, we will look to the iris to check if there are areas of atrophy that will think about of herpes infections, and very important also to check the fundus to check if we have a diabetic retinopathy or a papilledema that make us think of brain alterations. In these patients, it is also very important to check the dry eye with some tests. Especially in our practice, we use a smolarity test, which will be normally increased, a tear film stability test that will be decreased, and a test of Schirmer that will be normally decreased. But the main point to check here will be the corneal sensitivity. It can be really easy in our office just to check it with a cotton wisp test. And here we will find that there's a hyposensitivity of the cornea. There are other devices such as the Cochet-Bonnet esthesiometer or the Brill's esthesiometer that can be helpful as well to monitor the quantity of decrease. And also it is important to check it in the different quadrants to make a proper map of the corneal sensitivity. Of course, we will also use, if we have it in our clinic, a confocal microscopy, and here we'll be able to see a decreased corneal nerve density, a higher number of hyperreflective keratocytes, and a diminished epithelial and endothelial cell density. As for the treatment, first of all, we will stop toxic drops, avoid preservatives, start lubrication, and we will control the inflammation with steroids and also immunomodulators. And in some cases, we can think about punctal occlusion. But if we have MACI stage 2, then we will start with drugs to prevent stromal melting. We will start also blood-derived drops to promote reepithelialization, and also we will try to protect the cornea from the outside through contact lenses or closure of the eyelets. In our practice, it is quite easy to start with topical insulin. It's cheap for the patient, but sometimes it's not enough. So in those patients, we will switch to blood derivatives such as autologous serum, PRGF, PRP, or umbilical cord blood serum. Also, it will be very important in some cases to use the amniotic membrane. We all know that it gives us a mechanical protection, also a release of growth factors, and a support for epithelial cell adhesion, and it can be put in many ways depending on our choice. And of course, we will try to protect the cornea with non-surgical approaches, such as, for example, Nyctavic, which is a stitch that you can put, and it will prevent the patient from opening the eye with Botox or with a classic tarsorrhaphy. But unfortunately, we will have patients that will progress to a stage 2, and in those cases, we will need other approaches such as corneal neurotization in case we have everything okay, but we have a problem of the sensitivity of the cornea. It can be direct or indirect, and the basis of this procedure is to recover the sensitivity of the cornea, and it works wonderfully. It takes some months to start giving results, but it's a good procedure now. But in some cases that are more progressed, or where we have problems with the eyelids and also limbal deficiency, we will need other procedures such as keratoprosthesis, transmucous type 1, or osteokeratoprosthesis done with tibial bone or teeth. In this case, here we present a case of a patient that had Stevens-Johnson syndrome, and for many years did well with a PK because everything was stable, but there was a moment where she had a fungal keratitis, and we had many problems of reepithelialization. So first of all, we decided to stabilize the patient with a mucosal graft, and after some months, 2 months, to leave it to vascularize and stable, then we did a K-Pro type 1 transmucous procedure. Here you can see how we assemble the device with a cornea, and once we have prepared our device, then we will go back to the eye, we will lift up the mucosal graft, and we will proceed to put the K-Pro 1. Here we can see the last part of the video, where finally we will open the window, we will make a hole that will connect the outside and let the light enter. This procedure works really well in those cases that a type 1 without the mucosa won't work. And what about the neuropathic pain? Here we will have not a denervation, but an alteration of the nerves. As you know, the first reaction of our body will be to have a nociceptive pain, which is helpful because it will promote reepithelialization. But if we have our body creates microneuromas, then we will have a neuropathic pain, which is a pain that is caused by a lesion or disease of the somatosensory nervous system. Depending on where we have the lesion, the first order or the second order, we will have a peripheral or a central sensitization. And of course, we have other patients that won't have a clear evidence of actual or threatened tissue damage, causing the pain, but these patients will be named as nociplastic pain, and they are correlated with conditions such as fibromyalgia, migraine, complex regional pain syndrome, or irritable bowel syndrome. And they can be coexisting, so it's important to know that this happens. And this will be related with many etiologies, especially with general neurologic diseases, such as small fiber neuropathies. And what they will feel. This continuous firing of corneal nerve receptors may result in a lower stimulatory threshold. So these patients will experience hyperalgesia and also allodynia, especially photophobia. And also they will tell you about feeling of a sensation of pressure, burning, tingling, and electric pain sometimes in the trigeminal nerve area. It will be important to talk with them and even use ocular pain questionnaires to check the status, because they will have a low quality of life, and sometimes they will tell you that they have also problems of insomnia, mood swings, tinnitus, vertigo, things that do not correlate to the typical the symptoms that our other patients have. Here you have some examples that you can adapt of pain questionnaires. And here, what we will have as the corneal sensitivity is that we have an hypersensibility to a low threshold. And here, the main test will be the propagine challenge test. That will give us information about where we have the lesion, if it's in the first order or the second order. So if we have this patient that complains with a pain and we put a drop of anesthesia and the pain is no longer there, then it will be peripheral pain. But if you put anesthesia and he keeps complaining, then it will be a central pain, and this will need further approaches to the typical treatments that we give to the eye. In the confocal microscopy, we will have this image of microneuromas, which are terminal enlargements of subbasal corneal nerves. And as I said, the treatment will be mainly on treatments on the ocular surface, but here we will need a multidisciplinary approach, a unit control pain, where we will need an anesthesiologist, a physiotherapist, a psychologist, and a dietist to properly treat it. Here we will need some treatments such as gabapentin or duloxetine to control the central pain. Also, it can be helpful, the Prochera devices or the filter lenses, to prevent the extreme light photosensitivity. We will advise to check the vitamin B levels, especially B1, B6, and B12. And in some cases, it can be useful to do periocular injections with anti-inflammatories or anesthesias. And also, we can find some devices like extranasal neurostimulation that can work in these patients, or the toxin Botox injection in some areas. In some cases, and if you have it at your hospital, you can try to give neurostimulation and neuromodulation through these techniques. And of course, we will try to make a complete lifestyle change. So remember that normally NK will be stain without pain, and neuropathic pain, pain without stain. Thank you very much.